Yes, everybody. Russ on the West Ham Network. I hope you're all safe and well. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. Um, I want to talk about the academy, if that's okay with you. Holly did a really good video. Go back and check it out yesterday about sort of the lack of minutes for academy players and progression of academy players. And there's some really interesting comments that I was sort of getting involved in. The academy is really important to me. I watch a lot of academy football, and I think I don't just think it's West Ham fans. I think it's football fans in general have a utopian view of the academies, of their club academies. In that, it's boyhood club, lives around the corner, walks to the training ground, then gets in and ends up getting into the academy, working his way up into the reserves, which is no longer here anymore, and then going on to being a regular player for their side, their first team. And I don't think that's really the case anymore. And I think sometimes we need to look at football's moved on a little bit. I think, unfortunately. Possibly for the worst, particularly when it comes to the national side, in all honesty. A report recently showed that 97% of players in Premier League academies never make 1 minute of Premier League football in their career. 97. And that's what I didn't think put into context the Rashane sort of article we did in terms of looking at where the winners of the FA Youth Cup, the West Ham side, where are they now? And actually, when you look at them, it isn't as bad as I think it is, to be honest, as people think it is. That was the side that won the academy, the FA Cup, Youth Cup at the Emirates, 5-1 against the Arse. What a great night that was! 7,000 West Ham fans there. And when you look at them individually, where are they now, so to speak? They are pretty much, and I'll talk about the yellow bit in a minute, but they're pretty much all, with the exception of Divine, all still with the club. And actually, for the vast majority of them, are progressing through the club. Now, development takes longer, I think, now than it did 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. In that, usually you get an academy player, they'd play youth team football, they'd move into the combinations league side, play there, and dip in between that and the first team. You think of some of the players who've come through the ranks like that, the likes of, the Joe Coles, the Rio Ferdinands, Tony Cotties, the list goes on and on and on in terms of that development. However, that's not the case now. And in my eyes, that 97% just shows the 3% that make it have to be so good to get through. So good. Whereas previously, you might have got someone who's a decent player, an okay player, breaking to the first team. That's not the case now, particularly with the ability to go and buy players from overseas. Now, I'm not saying this is right, but what I'm saying is this is the nature of football now. You could go to Liga, for example, and buy an 18, like Lenny Euro, for example, from Man United bought him. He was 18 and he had so many games under his belt, and they spent a lot of money on him. You could go and buy players, and that's what we seem to be doing now. Mohamed Kante, for example, from Paris FC, under 19 central midfielder. We bought him, and rather than keep him in the youth team at West Ham, we sent him back to Paris FC to game football, almost utilising that the loan market as the old combinations league. And that's what we're sort of doing there. You look at it, Mason, he's actually now sort of second choice in the under-21s, with Finn now being the main sort of goalkeeper there. And he's on loan at AFC Hornchurch, or obviously an amateur side or a part-time side. So in the National League South. So he actually still trains with West Ham and then goes and plays match days with them. Ryan's still at the club. Ollie obviously made his Premier League debut. And in the yellow are ones who have had Premier League minutes for West Ham. And in terms of percentages, you think, as I said, at 97% of academy players who have made, a decent, who've actually played 1 minute of Premier League football. That's almost a a fifth, about 24% of our academy players have played Premier League football. And that's not to say that we're not going to get the others coming in to play Premier League football. Regan, he's had a long-term injury, bless him. Caelan's obviously still at the club. Patrick Kelly, PK, is at Doncaster, run by Grant McCann. George 𝙊𝙉𝙄𝙉, we know he's on loan at Bristol City. Callum's at Huddersfield, Gideon's at Wycombe. And Divine's moved on and obviously was not seen anywhere until recently when he was put on the bench for Man City the other day. Until then, that's really the only real sort of appearance he's made. And so we get hit over the head. Lopetegui gets hit over the head. David Moyes I'm not talking about David Moyes now. I'm talking about Lopetegui. Lopetegui's already come in and he's had to... he's obviously had to deal with everything for his father, and obviously we pass our condolences on to the Lopetegui family. And obviously, Julian is on compassionate leave, so the press conference isn't today; it's going to be tomorrow, ahead of the game against Brighton, Brighton Hove Albion on Saturday, last game for Christmas. But you see, continually in the squad, there are academy players in that matchday squad, and again, Monday I thought was a massive step change. And I think maybe we haven't looked into that enough. Aaron Cresswell he wasn't injured. Aaron Cresswell was in the travelling party. He was in the match day big squad, travelling up to, or travelling down to Bournemouth rather. And we knew fully well that it would be some time during that game that he would probably take off 𝙊𝙊𝙄𝙉𝙄𝙊𝙉. So who did he have in as his replacement? Ollie Scholes. Ollie Scholes, ironically, who isn't really playing left wing back or left back for the under-21s, playing more sort of central midfield alongside Lewis Orford. But that to me shows a step change, and it might only be one. And then Caelan came on for a couple of minutes, and Lewis Orford was on the bench. It's not as bad as people make out. That's what I'm trying to get. Yes, there are exceptions to the rule. There are some clubs out there who have got. I think I did some analysis was it last season? And I think out of the Premier League starters, I think it was like 8 or 9 were academy grown players. And that included people like Johnny Evans from Man United and stuff. Whereas in La Liga, it was like 20. The league is set up differently in France. There's less money in the game in Liga. So you get a lot of the sort of mid-table sides and below will be promoting youth into the side in order to eventually sell them on to make a profit. And that, if you look at the players we've got rid of recently, obviously we got rid of Declan Rice, academy project, product, albeit, originally from Chelsea, not from birth, so to speak. Ben Johnson, we let go, which, he hasn't really sort of dug up any trees since going to Ipswich, in all honesty. I think sometimes I think we still have this utopian view of how the academy works, and because they're in the academy, they are better than what we could bring in. If that makes sense. And some of them are. There's some really good players, and you said we do the academy show every Monday. And obviously, was it yesterday? No, it was Tuesday night. West Ham under-21s beat Sutton United 2-0 at Sutton United in the National League Cup Group D, which signed off their calendar year with a couple of goals, Josh Ajala and Ginny Robinson. Now people say, we need a striker, put Josh Ajala in. Josh Ajala, bless him, he's like 17, 18. He'll get eaten alive. And I think that's the issue, as I said, on paper, Lewis Orford is skillfully a lot better than Thomas Souček. But the physical demands of the Premier League mean that he would get munched in the midfield. And I think if they're good enough, we'll throw them in. But to the detriment of potentially the side, in my opinion. I've just pulled up some lists. I've just gone transfer market and pulled off anyone who, so to speak, and pulled off a list of people who we've let go. I don't include Ben Johnson in this list. And this is based on the last few years. People are still, I don't put Matt Holland in. Matt Holland doesn't play. He isn't playing anymore now. But you look at that list, and these are guys who are currently still active. Is there any there we could say we've missed the boat on? Maybe Tony Martinez, potentially. That's one in about 70, 80, or was it 20, about 25 in there? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. So it's about 25, say. So it's about 80 odd there, 80, 85 there. Tony Martinez, maybe, but he's had to move several times and until he's found his feet at Porto. Grady, we had all the issues when he got sold, how we were selling our youth team players and da-da-da. When it comes to the academy people know what they're doing in my eyes. You look at that list. Reece Burke played a bit of Premier League football, half decent player. Pelly, he went through every division. Connor Coventry, Nathan Trott, Jeremy Ngakia, Harrison Ashby, 𝙊𝙋𝙄𝙉𝙄𝙊𝙉, Divine maybe, but who knows? Elliot Lee, obviously playing at Wrexham. Sonny Perkins, that worked out well for him. He's currently on loan at Orient. Reece Oxford had to go around the houses before he found a decent club that suited him in the Bundesliga. But I'm looking for that list, and there's not anyone going, we let that one go. At the time, it was like, oh my God, Armstrong Ockerflex has gone, or I don't know, Nathan Holland's gone. But when you look at that list, there ain't many there that I think are misses. The academy know what they're doing. Kenny, Kevin, all those guys know what they're doing when it comes to the academy. And I think we've seen, I think on Monday we saw a chink of armour. I think we saw, a little opening into what's possible. I would imagine we'll see more games from Ollie coming into next year, into the next calendar year, for example. Now, for the rest, maybe. But we've got a lot of players out on loan, as you well know. I think there's 6 players who could potentially see some minutes. Probably not some of this season, but definitely some next season. So obviously, these are the midfielders. All these could have minutes next year. Obviously, Freddie's out on loan, doing a fantastic job, and that's how it should work. Without this sort of combinations league football, utilising the loan market to develop players physically is what we need. Skill-wise, they're already there, but it's the physicality, particularly from the midfielders. And Freddie went out on loan to Wickham last year, was their Players' Player of the Year, I think, last year. He's at Portsmouth now. He's gone up a division, playing really well, playing consistently 90 minutes each game, as you will know if you watch the Academy show every Monday. George, really start stop to his loan spell, but now he seems to be starting to find his feet. He made his Premier League debut last year for West Ham. We know we've got high hopes for him next year. Lewis Orford. Personally, I would like to see Lewis go out on loan next year, doing what basically Freddie's done. But you may well see him coming in, particularly if he likes of Guillermo Rodriguez leaves in January. He may be required, particularly maybe for the FA Cup run we'll have, hopefully. But you'll see him in and around the bench, I think, for match days, if he hasn't been loaned out in January, which I don't think he will, because I think we're quite light in the midfield, particularly for the under-21s. Defenders. Ollie, I think you'll see a lot more. I think Ollie's going to be playing a lot more this season. He just will. It might mean that actually he ends up moving back to left back for the under-21s, which I think should happen, because he's definitely one for the future. And I think with the fact that Aaron Cresswell will be out of contract next season, I think this is almost his audition for that sort of second left back berth. If we don't go, this could all change in January. We could buy left back, and that puts Ollie down to third. But I think you'll see a lot more minutes from him for sure. Kalen, I think at the moment we are a little bit short in terms of first choice or first team centre halves. So he is at the moment 4th choice centre half. And in all honesty, I think that's where he'll probably end up being. I think he's a good player, but I don't think he necessarily will get loads of minutes in the Premier League for West Ham. And my pick is the guy on the right, Julie Robinson. Now, this would be a leap of faith from Lopetegui to bring in, but if he's not going to be featured, he should go out on loan for sure. This guy is mustard. This guy is the next Carl Walker, and I think he would. He scored actually. He's a bit like Emerson on the right hand, on the left hand side, but plays on the right in terms of pretty much plays as a 10 for most of the game. But he's a really good player, and I really, really rate him. And obviously, from the year below, the game obviously on Tuesday, my boy Edris Golombekis played for the under-21s, which is a great step up for him. Because obviously, Kalen had gone into the match day squad for the Bournemouth game, so everyone moved up a spot. So having these guys in the first team squad actually means we're getting our production line better from the 18s into the 21s. So someone like Kalen, someone like, just looking at the team, someone like Fearon, someone like Dan Rigg, someone like Favour from Womney, someone like Amiki Adieli, someone like Svomny. There's loads of these good players who now getting a chance potentially in the under-21s because we're moving that pathway is starting to move slowly. Now, obviously on Saturday, the likes of Emerson, the likes of Mavropanos, Todibo, I imagine Todibo, as I'm calling it now, if his toe injury is better, then Mavropanos drops into the bench. Kalen will then probably drop out of the matchday squad. Potentially Emerson as well. Emerson comes in. Maybe Ollie keeps his place. Maybe Lewis Orford drops off, potentially. But maybe not, because obviously Carlos Soler is out. So actually Lewis might still be in there. So I think you'll still see 2 or 3. And I think every game you'll see 2 and 3 on the bench, which is great for their experience. But they need to be on the pitch because it's not going to help their development. It's a great for understanding of match day and how that all works, but not in terms of development. And that's what I was saying to a lot of people. I'll give him 5 minutes at the end, give him 10 minutes. What's the harm? Well, the harm is I'd rather him go out on loan and go to Portsmouth or go to Wickham or go to Charlton or someone like that and play 90 minutes week in, week out. That's going to develop him in the future. And as I said, with those five or six players, those are the ones I think you're going to see transitioning. I think you'll see the likes of Ollie getting more minutes in this second half of the season. Maybe Kalen, based on how Todibo and Mavropanos, if we don't bring in, this is subject to us not bringing in a centre half or a left back in January, which we could well do. But if that's the case, I'd send out Kalen on loan. And then I think you might start seeing the likes of Lewis maybe getting a cut, maybe the FA Cup run as well, potentially. Obviously, we do play Aston Villa, ironically, who they tried to buy Lewis Orford. So it'd be quite fun if we play him against him, just to go, fuck you, funny man. But Anyway, let me know what you think. It's a fascinating debate because it's a double-edged sword. You want to give them minutes, but you want them to be ready to have those minutes. We've had these situations before. Mipo or Debecco, came on against Man United, then got taken off, and basically that fucked his career at West Ham. And we've had people like Sebastian Leggett on, for example, talking about when Big Sam threw them all the boys on for that Nottingham Forest game, and that pretty much devastated their careers at West Ham. So there's a fine balance, isn't there? And people say, I'll just throw him on. Okay, well, who are you going to replace? It's like, is Kalen Casey better than Mavropanos? I don't know. And if I don't know, I'd probably stick for the safe approach rather than necessarily the unsafe approach. I don't know. I think Mavropanos is quicker than Kalen, having watched a lot of Kalen as well. But I think that left back issue is interesting, and the fact that, as I said, Aaron didn't get. It was almost like it felt like a changing of the guard, that sort of thing, particularly as he was still there walking about in his training kit as well. But anyway, we'll have Hammers headlines in a bit later on with the latest news and transfer rumours. Till then, take care, stay safe, stay warm, stay humble, keep the faith, and come on, you Irons. Irons.